than 4 billion people live across Asia, and we are telling their stories. In this edition, while some see global warming as a hoax, farmers around the world are feeling the consequences. Instead of denial and procrastination, China is actively working on new solutions and applying these in the real world. During China's War of Resistance, American General Joseph Stilwell built a road to connect China to India. This road carried much-needed supplies for China's war efforts. Today, Stillwell's legacy lives on, a reminder of the power of friendship.
Fire burning through the rugged backcountry of California's central coast.
Days now where the Philippines has been struck by yet another powerful typhoon.
The Earth has reached its first catastrophic tipping point for human-caused climate change.
At the current rate of emission, before we've consumed the budget, we are seriously running out of time.
Have you noticed that summers feel longer and winters are warmer? From my own experience, spring and fall seem to be disappearing. Even with all these clear signs, the debate continues, and some still turn a blind eye to climate change. Hello people, it's Shinshin here. The reality is, the heat we feel is just the beginning. It's already changing the way we live. In Europe, tomatoes are also feeling that heat, literally.
So that we can make a shadow for our plants that the heat is not too high.
Tomatoes make up about 9% of Austria's vegetable production, a staple in local cuisine. But as temperatures keep rising, are people ready to change their menus?
We tried to grow ginger, which was not possible 5 years ago.
Extreme weather, floods, hail, and drought is already costing European farmers an average of over $30 billion a year. And without stronger climate action, these losses could rise by as much as 40 to 66% by mid-century.
So in future, farmers will have to rethink their jobs because they might need to alterate their crops and think of other ways how to supply their plants with water.
To cool the planet, we need more than just shade. We need solutions. Greenhouse gases are the main drivers of global warming. With the right technology, we might be able to slow down that heating. This is an office complex with a carbon footprint close to zero, the first such construction in southwest China's Chengdu city. The square shapes in the elevated building structure perfectly blend with the landscape.
因为原始的地形呢，就是它是向南面的时候是冰湖嘛，它相对比较低，然后向北面呢是接着一块湿地，所以它是相对来说比较高一点，可能原始地形高差有个7、8米。所以我们在设计上是设计了一个双首层的这样一个模式，它既可以从南入，可以从北入，它上下有1层的这样一个高。
The roof gardens and environmental technologies have made the building highly energy efficient. For example, the outer glass walls are special. They are made of low emissivity glass with special coatings that can further regulate room temperature by minimizing the amount of infrared and ultraviolet light that comes through. Half of China's carbon emissions are caused by the construction business, and daily operations of buildings also generate much carbon emissions.
在建筑全寿命周期的碳排放里面呢，大概有80%以上是产生在建筑运行过程当中，而建造和拆除的过程当中，它占的比重是非常小的。所以我们减碳的关键就是要关注建筑的运行减碳。
Eco-friendly buildings are not a new concept, but focusing on reducing carbon emissions is believed to be more effective in curbing global warming. Countries, including China, have pledged limits on their carbon footprints. But turning those promises into real action will take determination and sustained effort.
We are on the verge of this objective collapsing, and that is one reason more at the present moment to put all possible pressure to have adequate nationally determined contributions.
but not every major emitter is fully committed.
The carbon footprint is a hoax.
So in the latest COP, the problem was that the developing countries suggested even $100 billion was far short, and some people came up with a target of $1.3 trillion annually. And this is quite a heavy lift.
The falling short directly impacts developing countries in tackling climate change. In Nigeria, heavy rains have intensified the wet season. Severe flooding has killed people and destroyed homes. Scientists say events like these are exactly the kind of extreme weather driven by climate change.
The reality is that vulnerable communities that contribute the least to climate change are the ones bearing the highest brunt of it.
The US and EU produce about half of the world's CO2. The global south emits far less, but its people are already facing the harshest impacts of climate change.
People are forced to move even when they don't desire it, and they're moving under very difficult, precarious circumstances, putting them and their families at risk.
Extreme weather doesn't just displace communities. It also drives up the demand for electricity as societies try to adapt and power their resilience. Global electricity demand is also soaring. Yet, at this critical moment, one of the world's largest emitters, the United States, is slowing down solar and wind expansion and even pressuring others to do the same. The move is set to protect oil and gas giants, but in the long run, could it be a losing bat? Because while the White House hesitates, China is racing ahead. Last year alone, China installed more solar capacity than the US has in its entire history. The future of energy is being built right now. A glimpse of that effort can be found in Ningxia, northwest China. This ocean of solar panels is proving skeptics wrong, turning 10,000 acres of bare land into a 2 million kilowatt solar powerhouse.
我们整个项目是2022年开始建设的，我们知道资源还是可以的。我们年均的利用小时大概是直流测是在1600个小时，交流测可以算得到1800个小时。
It's built across the ridges of retired mines and untouched coal seams. Terrain once written off, now reborn.
看我们这个都是随坡就市的啊，为了保证原始生态没有被破坏，所以没有说把土地全部推平来建这样方面的。
Driving around is Xu Maolong, the project leader of this solar farm. Thanks to rapid advances in photovoltaic technology, the efficiency rate here now exceeds 20%. It was a hazy day when I visited, yet the farm still generated enough electricity to power 300,000 households, and in most cases at a lower cost than coal.
这就是我们刚才说的鸳鸯湖电厂。
Before leading this project, she worked at the coal-fired plant just next door, still burning today.
这是我们2期的结构室，有3号机跟4号机，整个运行调度都在这边。小宁，你好，这是我们指导，陈小宁。
现在比方说我们白天这个新能源大发的情况下，我们就配合电网消大新能源，把负荷降下来。如果晚上新能源发电量少了，我们就配合电网把我们的负荷加起来。
Solar and wind are intermittent, while coal provides the stability the grid relies on. Old and new, coal and solar don't replace each other. They work together, complementing one another.
毕竟不可再生能源总有一天它会用完了，我们要给后续历史的发展要留一些资源，通过大力发展新能源，就把这个能源的这一块的就给补上，这样对我整个能源体系的安全，我感觉是一个科学发展的这种模式吧。
Well, China gets it. They're not ceding leadership. They see the economic opportunity. Clean energy is cheap energy, lowering costs and addressing the #1 anxiety we feel in the United States of America, and that's the cost of living.
10 years ago, coal accounted for 70% of China's power. Today, non-fossil energy exceeds 55%. And the grid, rock solid. China isn't gambling on renewable energy. It's integrating it intelligently with coal and storage. The message is clear. Wind and solar aren't a scam. This is the future of energy.
China is already leading in new energy and making real progress towards its carbon neutrality goal. Yet, this doesn't mean traditional energy and fossil fuels are disappearing overnight. Some may still point out that China is the world's largest emitter, but with its large population and rapid development, per capita emissions remain far lower than in the EU or the US. While China aims to reach its carbon peak by 2030, it already reduced its carbon intensity, CO2 per unit of GDP, by about 3.4% in 2024. And going green isn't just good for the planet, it can also be a smart investment.
They say going green costs too much. They say carbon can be contained. But should we stop exploring? Join me for a trip to the South China Sea, where one oil platform is proving them wrong. This is NPing 51 platform, one of the largest oil platforms in the world. Every day, wells here pump up crude oil, and with it, carbon dioxide. But instead of releasing it into the air, engineers are sending it back underground.
就是我们的含二氧化碳的原油呢，就是从这些油井产出的，然后在地面经过这个脱醇、分离、处理之后啊，再压缩，然后一部分呢就是回注到3公里之外800米深的这个咸水层里头，实现一个永久的。
It's called carbon capture and storage, or CCS. And this platform is one of the few in the world to make it work offshore. Deep beneath the sea, a natural dome holds the gas in place, a perfect geological valve sealed by rock and time. Over years, the carbon will fuse with minerals, turning emissions into stone.
当前世界范围内啊，可借鉴的海上二氧化碳封存利用的案例和技术体系是非常少的。尤其是二氧化碳能否封存住。 能否长期可持续的封存，这是关键所在。
Every ton of CO2 captured here is one less ton warming the atmosphere. Over its lifetime, NPing 15-1 can lock away over 1.4 million tons of carbon, the equivalent of taking 1 million cars off the road. But that's not all.
这口井呢，我们回注到这个原有的这个主力油塘去，实现一个去油，也就是 CCUS。
CCUS stands for Carbon Capture, Utilization and Storage. By using captured CO2 for enhanced oil recovery, the project can add over 200,000 cubic meters of output across its life cycle. That's more than $100 million worth. The same gas that once threatened the climate is now boosting production, making every barrel cleaner and smarter.
We know from a physical or a chemical standpoint that these technologies can work, but maybe they need scale, maybe they need adoption, maybe they need to iterate many, many times before they become cost effective. And that's where China's at right now with the next generation of technologies. When we talk about things like carbon capture, yeah, it's very expensive right now, but could it become cheaper? Well, that's what we were saying about solar panels 15 years ago, and look, they became cheaper.
更多的是来自于我们的技术的升级。 创新的这个驱动，一些这个更低成本、更经济、更绿色的这种方式去开采。
In parts of the world, climate policy has turned political. But on this stack, the debate doesn't matter. Only the data does.
To tackle climate change, humanity must act together. We cannot turn away, pretending the melting glaciers and vanishing lands won't affect us. China is committed to decarbonization and ready to collaborate, but the question remains for climate skeptics: to take the clean path forward or bury their hands in the sand as the threats grow.
Up next, Joseph Stilwell was not the only member of this remarkable family to serve as a bridge of friendship between China and the US. He was merely the first.
During the height of China's war of resistance against Japanese aggression, a road was carved out across soaring rivers and towering peaks. Traveling from India to Kunming in southwestern China meant the difference between life and death for a country whose fate was hanging by a thread.
Enjoy candy from the future.
It bears the name of General Joseph Stilwell, Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. forces in the China-Burma-India theater. 8 decades later, peace has given the road a different destiny. Quiet, perhaps, but not forgotten. On the 80th anniversary of its completion, the descendants of General Stillwell returned to China to retrace a road built through hardship and to discover what it still means today. For General Stillwell's descendants, this almost feels like homecoming. Over the years, they've visited China again and again. This time, they're at the Stillwell Research Center in Chongqing to unveil a full-size bronze statue. It's his great-granddaughter Nancy Millward's 7th time to China. Even her own children have visited twice.
It was very eye-opening for them at a young age to recognize that this entire country knows who General Stillwell is and respects him and still remembers what he did almost 100 years ago.
From Chongqing, the Stillwell family sets off to retrace the road their ancestor once helped build. In late 1942, construction began at the small town of Lido in Assam, India, under General Stillwell's direct command. From there, it would snake eastward across the Pat Kite Mountains through the jungles of northern Burma, now modern-day Myanmar, and on into the mountains of Yunnan. It would remain China's only lifeline until the war ended in 1945. From the west, the Lido Road was carved out by American engineers and soldiers driving bulldozers. From the east, the China-Burma Road was dug out by Chinese women, the elderly, and children with almost no machinery. Across India and Burma, thousands of local civilians also joined the effort.
Some historians said it was like the workers were digging this road using their fingernails.
Yes.
I mean, it's an allegory, but yeah, just thinking about the primitive tools and the effort and the terrible weather. Must have been really difficult to build this road, just bit by bit, 1 meter at a time. It's really an amazing feat of engineering.
In museums in Yunnan province, stone rollers like this one, used by Chinese workers, were passed down as a symbol of the struggle.
它很重，上坡的时候还好，大家往上拉就是费力一点，但是下坡的时候，一旦它滚下来，经常就是砸死几十个人。
Eventually, 1,133 American soldiers lost their lives building the road. For China, the toll was even greater. There was no way to count precisely, but the number is believed to have been at least 3,000, and likely far more. Countless Burmese and Indian civilian builders also sacrificed their lives for the road. They died in blasting accidents, in landslides and river crossings, buried under earth and stone, or from malaria and exhaustion. So heavy was the sacrifice that American engineers called it the road where a man fell for every mile. And that's just building the road. To keep it alive, Chinese and Allied forces fought fierce battles across western Yunnan, clearing the way for the two halves of the road to meet. The memory of that sacrifice is kept in cemeteries in historic battlegrounds like Songshan. Stone statues stand guard. And shoulder by shoulder with them is the figure of General Stillwell.
He had great admiration for the Chinese soldiers. I think he realized when he arrived here that if they just had a little bit of training, a little bit of leadership, the proper equipment, good medical supplies, they could be as good as any of the Allied soldiers.
For Stillwell's descendants, visiting these cemeteries is to see, carved in stone, the cost of the road they now retrace.
All these memorials set up in his honor to keep his story alive and to continue his legacy. I'm just deeply moved and touched at the amount of respect that you all have for my great-grandfather. It's just a beautiful story of mutual love, respect, and cooperation, and just gives us so much hope for the future.
In Tengchong, the war left its deepest scars and its most enduring memories. The family visits the memorial cemetery where thousands of Chinese soldiers rest. Side by side with them are 19 Americans. For the Stillwell family, it is here that memory takes on its most personal form.
My father was part of a group of folks that worked on the Tengchong 19. Tengchong had a memorial stone, and it had the name of only one American. And so a group of people got together to try and figure out who are all these Americans that are buried here. And so my dad helped with that effort in order to find the names, and he ended up helping to find 19 Americans that were buried there. And so ever since they've discovered those names, they've created memorial stones for all those 19 soldiers that were killed there. I really am excited to bring my children there for them to see that and to recognize that China really never does forget a friend.
In January 1945, after nearly 3 years of isolation, the Lido Road and the China-Burma Road finally connected. The first convoys rolled. More than 100 trucks crossed from India into China, bringing supplies the country had long awaited. To honor the man who championed the road, it was later named the Stillwell Road.
史迪威公路诞生于世界反法西斯战争的烽火之中，是中美英等同盟国为了共同目标付出巨大牺牲打通的生命线。它见证了战争的残酷，也见证了国际社会携手抗击侵略者的勇气与决心，成为国家之间友谊的桥梁。
And today, it's that friendship which Stillwell's descendants carry forward, across oceans and across generations. In 1982, his family and supporters created the Stillwell Scholarship, funding students from China to study at the Middlebury Institute in the United States. Huang Kai-meng was one of the first recipients of the scholarship.
史迪威将军奖学金嘛，它设在这个学校，已经40多年了。它应该说是改变了很多拿到这个奖学金的学生的命运，包括我自己。这个奖学金是史迪威将军的大女儿和他的小女儿2个人一起联合设立的。他们的初衷就是为了帮助中国和美国之间进行民间的教育啊这些交流。当时史迪威将军的大女儿就邀请我住在他家，跟他生活在一起，就点点滴滴受他的言传身教。在他去世之后呢，我呢一个是加入了史迪威奖学金基金会，从那时候起呢，我又跟他的儿子，也就是史迪威将军的外孙一家，又开始建立很深的这个关系和这个友情。
In 2023, General Stillwell's grandson, John Easterbrook, wrote to Chinese President Xi Jinping, sharing the story of that connection. President Xi replied, saying he felt the warmth of the American people through the Stillwell family and recalling how China and the U.S. once fought side by side for peace.
I have great pride in my family and the legacy that General Stilwell started so many years ago, and all of the work that both my grandmother and my father have done over the years. And it's truly our honor to be able to create these friendships and these relationships. I hope that my children see that and recognize that that's how life is. You make connections with people and you build these bonds and you bridge these gaps, and it helps to bring both of our countries closer together.
Today, as the fourth and fifth generations of General Stilwell's descendants again set foot on these roads, they're retracing more than a line on the map. They're remembering the sacrifice and faith that made it possible.
Dennis was here.
Faith that allies could stand together and that the future would hold more than the darkness of war.
And it is written that he had a great admiration for the Chinese people, and he saw the potential of this great country. And look what it's become today. He was a visionary. Maybe he traveled into the future already and went back and said, you have a great future ahead of you, and this is how we do it.
On September the 3rd, 2025, the two Stillwell great-granddaughters were invited as special guests at China's V-Day parade in Tiananmen Square, a rare honor underscoring the regard China holds for the Stillwell family.
I was thinking that the entire time I was watching the parade. It was such a magnificent display of national pride for China, and I was so honored to be there as an American to be able to witness that. And I think that General Stillwell, given how much he admired the Chinese soldiers and knew that they were capable of doing so much, to be able to see the military now, I think he would be so pleased.
On historic battlegrounds, General Stillwell's great-great-grandchildren and their Chinese peers are kicking off a new generation of exchange.
I haven't seen any of the Chinese kids play, so I don't know, but I can do my own thing, you know? I don't know if I'll win, but it will be a good battle. So far, it's been amazing. China's very beautiful, definitely different from America, but very unique and awesome. I would like to live here.
Where their ancestors fought side by side, they're now playing shoulder to shoulder, with the same spirit of courage, respect, and friendship.
Showing our children the bonds that he made with the Chinese people is really important for them to learn their place in the world and their understanding of other people around them. I think both countries will have their challenges moving forward, and we don't always see eye to eye, at least in terms of our leadership, but I do think that there's a lot of space for creating collaboration. I think the more interactions that we can have on a people-to-people basis will definitely help with that.
民相亲在于心相近，心相近在于情相通，情相通需要我们常走动。希望我们中美两国民间能够加强交往，更多的为维护世界和平做出我们的努力。
8 decades on, the Stillwell Road endures. Not as a relic of the war, but as a reminder of a history shared and remembered across time and space.